Have you ever felt like your mind is overloaded, as if you're trying to juggle too many things at once, yet accomplishing none of them efficiently? Or maybe you found yourself walking down the street, staring at your phone, only to realize later you missed a beautiful sunset or an important detail in your surroundings. In our modern world of distractions, we pride ourselves on multitasking, but let's pause and ask, are we really achieving more? Or are we losing focus on what truly matters? Today, we delve into a fascinating concept inspired by Sherlock Holmes, the master detective. Maria Konnikova, in her book Mastermind, How to Think Like Sherlock Holmes, explains how Holmes' methodical way of thinking can transform the way we process information, observe the world, and make decisions. Let's explore the first 5 principles that make his approach so effective. Chapter 1. Mindfulness versus multitasking. Holmes doesn't rush to solve a problem or chase multiple leads simultaneously. Instead, he focuses on one task with complete mindfulness. Compare that to our tendency to multitask, texting while working, listening to a podcast while writing emails, or scrolling through social media during a meeting. We think we're being productive, but studies show that multitasking diminishes our efficiency and cognitive performance. Mindfulness is the antidote to this chaos. Holmes teaches us to engage fully with the task at hand. When he examines a crime scene, he doesn't just glance over it. He immerses himself in every detail. What would happen if we applied this to our own lives? Imagine reading a book without distractions, listening to a friend without mentally drafting your reply, or completing a project without checking your phone every 5 minutes. Not only would we perform better, but we'd also enjoy a deeper sense of fulfillment. Chapter 2. The Brain Attic Metaphor. Have you ever cleaned out a cluttered room and felt a sudden wave of relief? Holmes compares the human mind to an attic, a space with limited storage. If you stuff it with random, unnecessary objects, it becomes disorganized and difficult to navigate. But if you curate what goes into it, your mind becomes a well-organized space where every item has a purpose. Think about your mental attic. Is it filled with trivial details, gossip, and distractions? Or have you stored useful, meaningful information that can be applied in your work, relationships, and personal growth? Holmes was deliberate in what he chose to learn, focusing on subjects that could help him solve cases. The lesson here is not to hoard knowledge, but to prioritize and organize it. What's in your attic, and does it reflect what you value most? Chapter 3. Engage in active observation. Most people walk through life seeing but not truly observing. Holmes draws a sharp distinction between the two. Seeing is passive. It's what happens when you glance at a scene and move on. Observing, on the other hand, is active. It's about noticing the details that others overlook. For example, imagine entering a friend's home. You might see the furniture, the colors of the walls, and the general layout. But if you were to observe actively, you'd notice the wear on the couch that shows it's a favorite spot, the faint aroma of coffee that suggests a morning ritual, or the family photos arranged to highlight key milestones. Holmes' power of observation lies in his ability to notice these subtle clues and piece them together. To practice active observation, start small. The next time you're in a meeting, notice not just what people say, but how they say it. Observe their tone, body language, and choice of words. The world becomes richer and more fascinating when we pay attention to the details. Chapter 4. The Importance of Curiosity. Curiosity is the driving force behind Holmes' intellect. He's not just solving crimes, he's deeply interested in understanding how the world works. This childlike curiosity allows him to approach every case with fresh eyes and an open mind. Ask yourself, when was the last time you were truly curious? As children, we were full of questions. Why is the sky blue? How does a car work? But as we grow older, we often lose that sense of wonder, bogged down by routines and responsibilities. Yet curiosity is what fuels innovation and creativity. Holmes reminds us to rekindle our curiosity. Instead of accepting things at face value, ask questions. Why is something the way it is? How does it function? Whether it's a complex work problem or the mechanics of everyday life, curiosity leads to deeper understanding and often unexpected solutions. Chapter 5. Differentiate between seeing and observing. Holmes takes his observations a step further by combining them with logical reasoning. While most people see only surface-level details, Holmes digs deeper to uncover hidden patterns. For example, when observing a person's hands, he might notice calluses that indicate a specific occupation or ink stains that reveal a love of writing. This level of analysis requires practice, but it starts with slowing down. Instead of rushing through your day, take a moment to notice your surroundings. What do the objects on someone's desk tell you about their personality? What can you deduce from the way someone speaks or carries themselves? Observation is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with deliberate practice. Chapter 6. Practice deductive thinking. Holmes' signature strength lies in his ability to think deductively. But what does that mean? Deductive thinking starts with general principles or known facts and applies them to specific cases to reach logical conclusions. It's the opposite of guessing or jumping to conclusions. Imagine a situation where you find wet footprints leading away from a puddle indoors. Instead of assuming that someone spilled water, a deductive thinker would ask, where did the footprints come from? Why are they wet? Is it raining outside? Holmes would take it step by step, gathering evidence before making any claims. We, on the other hand, often fall into the trap of quick conclusions. For example, if someone is late to a meeting, we might assume they're careless. But a deductive approach would involve asking, did they get stuck in traffic? Was there an emergency? By practicing deduction, we can avoid misunderstandings and make better decisions in every aspect of life, from work to relationships. Chapter 7. Avoid cognitive biases. Holmes is a master at overcoming cognitive biases, while most of us fall victim to them daily. What are cognitive biases? They're mental shortcuts or distortions that influence our judgment. For example, confirmation bias makes us seek out information that supports what we already believe, ignoring evidence to the contrary. Holmes actively challenges these biases by questioning everything. He doesn't let personal feelings or preconceived notions cloud his judgment. In one of his cases, Watson assumes that a man's wealth and appearance make him trustworthy, but Holmes insists on digging deeper. Sure enough, the man turns out to be the culprit. In our own lives, we can follow Holmes' example by being aware of our biases and questioning our assumptions. Are you judging someone based on stereotypes? Are you dismissing an idea because it challenges your beliefs? By recognizing and addressing these biases, we can think more clearly and make fairer, more accurate decisions. Chapter 8. Mental energy conservation. Have you ever felt mentally drained after making a series of decisions, even small ones? That's because our mental energy is finite, just like our physical energy. Holmes understands this and uses his mental energy wisely. He doesn't waste it on trivial matters or unproductive worries. One way Holmes conserves energy is by prioritizing tasks. He focuses on what truly matters and eliminates distractions. For example, when working on a case, he doesn't concern himself with gossip or irrelevant details. Instead, he channels all his energy into solving the problem at hand. We can adopt this strategy in our own lives by simplifying our choices. Instead of agonizing over every small decision, like what to wear or what to eat, we can create routines or habits to free up mental space for more important tasks. By being intentional about where we direct our focus, we can achieve more without feeling exhausted. Chapter 9. The importance of quiet reflection. How often do you take time to just think? In our fast-paced world, quiet reflection feels like a luxury. But for Holmes, it's essential. He often retreats into solitude to process information, think through problems, and gain clarity. Quiet reflection isn't just about sitting in silence. It's about creating mental space to analyze and synthesize information. Holmes uses this time to connect seemingly unrelated pieces of evidence and uncover hidden patterns. Without this pause, even his sharp mind would struggle to see the bigger picture. We, too, need moments of reflection in our daily lives. Whether it's a walk in the park, journaling, or simply sitting without distractions, this time allows us to process our thoughts and make better decisions. Think about it. How often have your best ideas come to you when you were relaxed and free from interruptions? Chapter 10. Question assumptions. Holmes' success often comes from his ability to question assumptions that others take for granted. While most people accept surface-level explanations, Holmes digs deeper, asking, "What if the obvious answer is wrong?" For example, in one of his cases, a crime appears to have been committed by a random thief. Everyone else accepts this explanation, but Holmes questions it. Why would the thief choose this particular target? Why at this specific time? By challenging the assumption, he uncovers a far more complex truth. In our daily lives, we frequently operate on assumptions without realizing it. Think about a work problem where everyone agrees on a solution that seems obvious. Have you ever stopped to ask, is there another explanation? Is there a better way? By questioning assumptions, we open ourselves up to new perspectives and innovative solutions. Chapter 11. Holmes' dual processing mind. Holmes doesn't rely solely on logic or intuition. He uses both. He understands that the mind operates on two levels. System 1, which is fast and instinctive, and System 2, which is slower and analytical. Most people default to System 1 because it's quicker and easier. But Holmes knows that true understanding often requires System 2, deliberate, thoughtful reasoning. Think about a time when you misjudged someone based on a first impression. That was System 1 at work, jumping to conclusions. Holmes, on the other hand, uses System 2 to dig deeper. He observes, analyzes, and tests his initial instincts. For instance, if he notices someone's hands are calloused, his intuition might suggest they're a laborer. But instead of stopping there, he asks questions. What kind of labor? Is it manual work or a specific skill, like carpentry? We can follow Holmes' example by pausing to question our instincts. The next time you make a quick judgment, take a step back and ask, is this conclusion based on evidence, or am I relying on a gut feeling? By engaging both systems of the mind, we can make more balanced, informed decisions. Chapter 12. Keep emotions in check. Holmes is not emotionless, as some might think. He feels, but he doesn't let emotions cloud his reasoning. This emotional discipline is one of his greatest strengths. Watson, by contrast, often reacts emotionally, which leads to hasty assumptions. Holmes, on the other hand, recognizes his feelings but doesn't allow them to dictate his actions. How often do we let emotions take control? Anger can make us lash out. Fear can hold us back, and overconfidence can lead to mistakes. Holmes teaches us to acknowledge our emotions without becoming their slave. For example, when faced with a frustrating problem, instead of reacting impulsively, Holmes steps back, reflects, and approaches the issue logically. We can practice this by building self-awareness. When emotions rise, pause and label them. Are you feeling frustrated? Anxious? Excited? Simply naming your emotion can help you detach from it and think more clearly. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means understanding them and choosing your response wisely. Chapter 13. Learn through practice. Holmes wasn't born a master detective. He honed his skills through constant practice and discipline. He reads, studies, and observes the world around him to build a vast store of knowledge and sharpen his abilities. In one story, Watson marvels at Holmes' ability to identify different types of tobacco ash. Holmes explains that he studied them extensively to develop that expertise. This principle applies to all of us. Whatever skill or knowledge we want to acquire, it takes consistent effort and practice. Think about a skill you admire in someone else, perhaps a musician's talent, an athlete's precision, or a colleague's ability to think on their feet. None of these abilities came overnight. They were built through deliberate practice. Holmes' dedication reminds us that learning is a lifelong process. Start small. If you want to improve your problem-solving skills, practice analyzing situations step by step. If you want to communicate better, observe how great speakers craft their words. Progress may be slow, but over time, the effort compounds and mastery becomes attainable. Chapter 14. Knowledge should be useful. Holmes doesn't clutter his mind with random trivia. He famously tells Watson that he didn't know the Earth revolves around the sun because it has no bearing on his work. While this may seem extreme, it underscores an important point. Knowledge is most valuable when it serves a purpose. In today's world, we're bombarded with information, news, social media, entertainment. But how much of it is truly useful? Holmes teaches us to be intentional about what we learn. He focuses on subjects that help him solve cases like chemistry, anatomy, and criminology, while ignoring irrelevant details. We can apply this by curating the information we consume. Instead of passively scrolling through endless feeds, ask yourself, is this adding value to my life? Is it helping me achieve my goals or understand the world better? By focusing on purposeful learning, we can make our knowledge more meaningful and impactful. Chapter 15. The value of asking questions. Holmes is relentless in his pursuit of the truth, and his greatest tool is the question. He doesn't accept things at face value, but probes deeper with thoughtful, targeted questions. For example, when examining a crime scene, he might ask, why was this item moved? What does the position of the body tell us? Why did the crime happen at this particular time? Asking the right questions is a skill, and it's one we can develop. Start by being curious. Instead of making statements, turn them into questions. For instance, instead of thinking, that person is rude, ask, why are they acting this way? Could they be having a bad day? Questions open the door to understanding and insight. In our daily lives, we often hesitate to ask questions, fearing we'll appear ignorant or intrusive. But Holmes shows us that questions are the key to uncovering hidden truths. Whether you're trying to solve a work problem, understand a friend's behavior, or learn a new skill, asking thoughtful questions can lead to deeper connections and better solutions. Chapter 16. Learn from your mistakes. One of Holmes' most admirable qualities is his willingness to admit when he's wrong. He doesn't let ego or pride stop him from reevaluating his conclusions. If he makes an error, he treats it as a learning opportunity, not a failure. Think about how we often react to mistakes. Many of us become defensive or avoid revisiting the situation entirely. Holmes, on the other hand, reflects deeply on what went wrong. He asks, was my observation incomplete? Did I jump to conclusions? This humility allows him to continuously refine his methods. We can embrace this principle by treating mistakes as feedback. Instead of asking, why did I fail? Ask, what can I learn from this? Whether it's a misstep in a project or a misunderstanding in a relationship, every mistake is an opportunity to grow. Chapter 17. Control your mental environment. Holmes carefully curates his mental environment. He avoids unnecessary distractions and creates spaces conducive to deep thinking. In contrast, many of us allow external noise, emails, notifications, endless scrolling, to invade our mental space. Holmes shows us the power of focus. When he's working on a case, he immerses himself completely, shutting out anything irrelevant. This level of concentration allows him to connect dots that others miss. To apply this, consider how your environment affects your focus. Are you surrounded by distractions? Do you schedule uninterrupted time for important tasks? By controlling your mental environment, you can unlock deeper levels of productivity and creativity. Chapter 18. Cultivate resilience. Holmes remains calm under pressure, no matter how dire the circumstances. This resilience comes from his ability to detach from emotional turmoil and focus on the problem at hand. He doesn't panic, he strategizes. Resilience is a skill we all need, especially in a world full of uncertainties. When faced with setbacks, instead of giving in to frustration or fear, channel your inner Holmes. Ask yourself, what's within my control? What's the next logical step? By staying grounded, you can navigate even the most challenging situations with clarity and confidence. Chapter 19. Think for yourself. Holmes doesn't blindly accept what others tell him. He questions conventional wisdom, challenges popular opinions, and relies on his own reasoning to reach conclusions. In our daily lives, it's easy to go along with the crowd or accept information at face value. But Holmes reminds us to think critically. Are we forming our own opinions, or are we being influenced by others? By asking questions and seeking evidence, we can make more independent and informed choices. Chapter 20. Be persistent. Holmes' success is rooted in persistence. Even when a case seems unsolvable, he doesn't give up. He keeps analyzing, experimenting, and seeking new perspectives until he finds the answer. This persistence is a reminder that success often requires patience and determination. Whether you're tackling a complex problem at work or pursuing a long-term goal, setbacks are inevitable. The key is to keep going, just as Holmes does. Break the problem into smaller parts, explore alternative angles, and trust that persistence will lead to progress. Chapter 21. Trust the process. Finally, Holmes understands the importance of trusting his methods. He doesn't rush to conclusions or let external pressure derail his process. Instead, he follows his reasoning step by step, confident that it will lead to the right outcome. In our own lives, we can take inspiration from this. When faced with uncertainty, it's tempting to seek quick fixes or shortcuts. But true success often lies in trusting the process, whether it's studying for an exam, building a career, or solving a personal challenge. Stay disciplined, follow the steps, and believe in the power of deliberate effort. We've now explored 21 principles from Mastermind. How to think like Sherlock Holmes, each offering a valuable lesson in how to think more clearly, act more decisively, and live more intentionally. These principles aren't just theoretical. They're tools we can apply every day. Holmes teaches us to observe actively, think logically, and question assumptions. He reminds us to avoid distractions, control our emotions, and embrace curiosity. Whether it's prioritizing useful knowledge, learning from mistakes, or trusting the process, every principle builds toward one central idea. The mind is our greatest asset, but it requires training and discipline to reach its full potential. Let's not leave these lessons in the pages of a book. Let's bring them to life. What would happen if we approached our work, relationships, and challenges with the same clarity and focus as Sherlock Holmes? What would change if we slowed down, observed deeply, and thought deliberately? The answers lie in how we choose to apply these principles. Holmes didn't have superhuman powers. He simply mastered the art of thinking. And so can we. The journey begins with a single step, a single observation, and a single choice to think more like Sherlock Holmes. Thank you.